Hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the broadcaster and commentator Ali Miraj and the journalist and broadcaster Sonia Sodha. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. Well, now let's see what is on some of those front pages. The Guardian leads with an exclusive interview with Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who vows to reject gloomy predictions from the Office of Budget Responsibility amid suggestions she may increase taxes in next month's budget. The Metro reports on Hurricane Melissa making landfall in Jamaica with what the paper calls pure fury. With some experts claiming Melissa may be the storm of the century, the eye suggests it could turn out to be worse than Hurricane Katrina 20 years ago. The Daily Mail have led with a case which unfolded this afternoon in which 2 people were stabbed and police tasered the suspect on a street in Uxbridge. The Financial Times says Microsoft has just been valued at over $4 trillion after a restructuring which sees it join forces with AI giant ChatGPT. Meanwhile, The Telegraph says that Labour has demanded councils who adopted a 4-day working week should return to 5 days, as it is a waste of taxpayers' money. And the Times, I'm reading there, that Labour will miss the target of 1.5 million homes. That's according to house builders. Let's go to the Daily Star. It's taken aim at ex-Prime Minister Liz Truss, claiming that she never reads newspapers. And The Sun is reporting on their own campaign to stop the budget impacting the gambling industry. And we are joined tonight by Ali Miraj and Sonia Sodha. Great to see you both. Lots of different stories, but I suppose there is one that is happening right now, and that's Hurricane Melissa. It made landfall a few hours ago, and we just spoke to some government ministers. They've already lost contact with several parts of Jamaica. And there, the headline in the eye, and Ali, let me start with you, it could be bigger than Hurricane Katrina, which was devastating.
Absolutely terrifying for the people there. We've seen the images all day. Even before it hit land, it had already actually created a lot of havoc with extensive flooding already occurring. And Hurricane Katrina back in 2005, I remember over 1,300 people lost their lives in that. And the impact of that was felt for years to come. So, look, the Jamaican government has actually done everything it can do in terms of warning people early, saying don't be brave, don't try and be a hero, get to higher ground, shelter as quickly as you can. Clearly, it's going to impact people's lives. At the moment, they're having to leave their homes. It's been downgraded to Category 4 as we understand it, but that's still severe. But hopefully it will not be as impactful as Category 5. But clearly this is a big, big concern for the people of Jamaica. And I think the government's doing everything it can to warn people to take evasive action now.
Yeah, and Sonia, it's interesting because it's been a slow-moving storm.
Yeah.
In a way, it gave people more time to prepare,
yes,
but it's made it more fierce.
Definitely, and it means that when it hits, it does more damage because you're living with those winds for a longer period of time and are more sustained in the same area. And, I think it's that sense of scale. It's worse than Hurricane Katrina. And we all know what havoc Hurricane Katrina wreaked in the United States and how many people lost their lives in that storm. So, I think it's a huge, huge thing for the Jamaican government to have to deal with. And, we're hearing reports. There were lots of people who did evacuate areas where they were asked to evacuate, but it's always that really difficult thing. A lot of people actually find it scarier to leave their homes, and in areas that have been hit by flooding already, you've got worrying reports of people stranded, waiting for help. So, I think nature can be extremely fierce, and, we've just got to hope that the loss of life and the destruction and damage is as minimal as possible.
Absolutely, and we are, of course, monitoring all developments that come out of Jamaica. Let's go to another story now. Front page of The Guardian. Reeves vows to defy gloom after $20 billion budget blow. It's not good news stories for Rachel Reeves. And this is the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, cutting the estimate for productivity. Sonia,
that's right. So, this has been expected for a while. I think people were expecting that the OBR, which produces, a forecast just before the budget, they were expecting growth and productivity growth to be downgraded. The problem is that it leaves Rachel Reeves with an extra gap that she has to fill if she's going to stick to her fiscal rules. We're expecting the gap to be of around kind of 20 billion if it's a 0.3 percentage point cut to productivity. Now, Rachel Reeves is trying to defy these projections by sort of manifesting, I think is the best way to sort of put it. So, you know, there's a suggestion in this Guardian piece, she's hoping that growth will be better than expected and will sort of prove the OBR wrong. And that they, you know, on what's called the budget scorecard, actually they'll give her sort of more points, as it were, for growth-boosting measures like planning reform. But I think at the end of the day, I was on the Trevor Phillips show on Sunday with the ex-governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, and he kind of lay into this system that politicians have created around the OBR and said, it's basically, I mean, yeah, they're projections, but I mean, no one really knows where we're going to be in 5 years, and it's sort of ridiculous to be targeting to the sort of billion these projections, and I think that does sort of raise questions about the approach.
There are three things that Rachel Reeves can do. She can borrow, she can cut spending, or she can try and grow the economy. Growing the economy is notoriously difficult, and our growth has been woeful for the last 20 years. So it's really, really a tough job she's got to do. She's trying to do things on the what we call the supply side by trying to boost planning, reforms and all these things and get that going. But that's also looking tough to meet the 1.5 million homes target. And that lobby is also coming out, the housing lobby, saying, you know, there are too many restrictions on us. And when it comes to borrowing money, we're already at a generational high in terms of our bond yields, which is the amount, the borrowing costs that we have on UK government debt. So she's got a really, really difficult choice to make. What does she do? Does she increase tax? Does she cut spending? If she then breaches that manifesto pledge of not touching income tax, which, by the way, would be the simplest thing to do, or one of the simplest things to do, I mean, it could be a real watershed crossing the Rubicon moment for her. The other side of it is cutting spending, but she's had the rug pulled up from underneath her feet by her own backbenchers who didn't even want to countenance a $5 billion saving on the back of welfare reform. So I just think that, unfortunately, her own party are not serious about the situation we have. The public generally also want to live in cloud cuckoo land on it. There are no easy choices. And whether it's 20 billion, 30 billion, 40 billion, she's also talking about the fact she needs a bit more fiscal headroom than last time, which was about 9 billion that she left herself, which means that she keeps having to come cap in hand every year with the budget for more and more taxes to be raised.
I do wonder if there's a bit of her that just, because there were a lot of people around the time of her first budget saying this is actually the time to say the world has got worse. We're really sorry, guys. We know we said we weren't going to do this, but we do need to put up income tax. Instead, they had this really kind of this wheeze to sort of try and raise tax, but in a way that was consistent with their manifesto pledge by raising tax on national insurance on employers, on employer contributions rather than employees. And, you know, I think maybe the time to do it was when they were a little bit more popular.
Because they're not popular. And just to move on to another story on the front page of the Telegraph, it's not working if they're doing this, because this says Nigel Farage is now preferred as Prime Minister to Keir Starmer. Talk us through this.
Well, he is. This is according to the latest polling now. It is saying that the Reform leader is seen as a better candidate by 33% to Keir Starmer's 30%. And we know that they're 10 points ahead in the polls as well. Look, Reform forming a government will be a very tall order, given the fact that they've only got 5 MPs. They've got Danny Kruger now, who's also defected, 5 or 6, whatever it is, MPs. It's going to be a big thing. Even if they got 100 seats, it would be a massive achievement. So we need to be careful about getting carried away with ourselves. But they are making all the political weather at the moment. And they have been for several months now.
Is it just because being in opposition right now, because of the intractable problems the government is facing, is easier than usual? Yeah,
potentially, but then the Lib Dems have 70 seats and no one cares a jot what they think. I mean, you've just seen what's happened in Caerphilly in the by-election. Yes, it was won by Plaid Cymru. Reform came second. That was seen as a bit of a disappointment. But they came from absolutely nowhere to get 30% of the vote. I mean, this is really bad for Starmer. People are struggling to find out what this government actually stands for and what the narrative is, what the vision is and what the plan is to get there.
But what's interesting, I think this is actually a sign of, rather than sort of showing that Nigel Farage is doing brilliantly with the electorate. I think it's a sign of how poorly Keir Starmer is performing, because what we know about Nigel Farage is he's actually quite a Marmite figure. So there is a proportion of the electorate that really like him, but there's a bigger proportion of the electorate who really don't like him. And we saw some of those forces in the Caerphilly by-election last week. There's a big sort of stop Farage energy amongst, centre-left voters in the country. So, Farage is Marmite in the same way that Boris Johnson was Marmite. And I think the fact that Keir Starmer his favourability is below that of Nigel Farage just goes to show how much trouble Starmer is in.
People say one thing in polls and then would maybe vote in a
Yeah, of
different
course.
way.
Yeah.
We have a minute left. Let's look at a cartoon, Matt.
Oh,
Matt.
I asked for this one. I requested this one.
Well, if you ask for it, then talk us through it then.
Well, just because, it's a play on the comments, I think racist comments that Sarah Potchin made, the Reform MP, saying, it drove her mad, the number of brown and black faces in advertising on TV. And so we've got a picture of a farm shop, a farmer with lots of carved pumpkins saying a Reform MP came in and was driven mad by all the orange faces. I think we would call that pumpkinist.
Yes.
I think Potchin put it very, very badly, and clearly those comments were wrong. I think the broader DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion strategy that's out there is something that people are getting a bit...
That's what Nigel Farage said when he was
a broader thing. I think
he
there's
was
something
obviously
in there.
not happy.
I think there's something in there.
Ali, Sonia, we're going to have to leave it there for now. Coming up, as Benjamin Netanyahu orders renewed strikes on Gaza, is the peace agreement brokered by Donald Trump now in jeopardy? We'll discuss that next.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Welcome to the world.
Come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? This is the war game.
There were a number of armed security.
We want to discover, to find out what's really going on.
Everything you need to know about British politics in about 20 minutes. I actually don't like political drama.
So, where next?
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
A lifeline for millions of people living on both sides of one of the most volatile international borders.
It's dams like these that have become inflection points between the two nuclear-armed neighbors, which could potentially lead to water wars in the future. A terror attack has shattered the peace and tranquility of Kashmir. At least 26 people have been killed and as many injured when militants fired upon them. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
The old and young, all weary after being trapped for days as the worst floods have hit Kerala in a century.
3 days we are on a rooftop. They have no food, nothing.
The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. There have been reported deaths and many injuries, several critical.
Many families will grapple with the unimaginable loss of one of the worst disasters in India's aviation history.
The spiraling violence between two nuclear-armed neighbors that harbor decades of hostility just seems to be getting worse by the day.
Garbage dumps like this not only threaten the lives of millions of people, but also pose a deadly consequence on the environment and climate.
It is a source of death, decay, disease and pollution for hundreds of thousands of people living in its shadows.
There is so much disease because of this garbage. Sometimes it's so difficult to just breathe.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Over the next 45 days, an estimated 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. It's a real kaleidoscope of people from all walks of life.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me in the studio, Ali Miraj and Sonia Sodha. Right, let's go straight away to the front page of the Times, a story that's not in a lot of newspapers, but actually we've been talking about here on Sky because it's broken quite recently. Deadly Israeli strikes in Gaza after Hamas accused of attacks. Now, both Hamas and Israel accuse each other of having breached the ceasefire, but certainly Israel has attacked Gaza tonight.
Look, this is a moment of real danger for the whole entire ceasefire and the peace process because this was always a potential that could have happened, and now it's coming to pass. Israel is saying that Hamas has attacked its soldiers at the Rafah crossing. It has now hit back. There have been 9 people who have already been killed, 4 others injured so far. And
there's also the issue of hostages.
There's also the big issue of hostages.
Yeah,
yes.
Like giving the remains of a hostage.
Giving the remains of a hostage that had already been given back previously and not giving all the, I think there are 13 remaining in Gaza.
Which was part of the agreement.
Which is an interesting point, because if Hamas genuinely didn't know where they were, why on earth did it agree to giving the remains of the dead hostages if it didn't know where they were? I mean, it seems completely bizarre. Yeah. So it's got itself into this position, and now we've got potentially a conflagration of the war beginning again. This is a very, very dangerous moment. The US has now said it's given its backing for Israeli attacks on Hamas infrastructure and to assassinate senior Hamas members. And in the meantime, from what we read in the papers, Hamas members are trying to quash any opposition locally within Gaza as well. And they're meant to be actually, as part of the 20-point plan from President Trump, leaving the scene. Yes. Can't see any sign of that at the moment.
No, Sonia?
Yeah, it's, it was certainly an achievement to get that ceasefire agreement. There were a lot of people who were sceptical that Trump and those around Trump could do it, including, I have to say, I was sceptical, but they somehow brought it together. But the even more difficult stuff was always going to be, can this ceasefire hold? And it's sort of depressingly predictable, really, that you have got this kind of... I mean, at the moment, it's sort of fairly low level compared to what we were seeing pre-ceasefire, but it really does feel like, you know, the Middle East remains on the brink.
It was interesting here from J.D. Vance a little bit earlier. He said that as far as he's concerned, the ceasefire still holds, and he described skirmishes are likely to happen. So I guess he describes it as skirmishes. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it sort of depends whether they escalate or whether they manage to keep a lid on it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. We'll see what Donald Trump says when he stops travelling around Asia or when he speaks. Let's end on a story, a sad news story, but also one I can't help smiling whenever I just think back of those Faulty Tower scenes. So there it is, Ali. How will you remember Prunella Scales?
Well, as Sybil Faulty, of course. I mean, it's an iconic sitcom. We grew up with it. She was brilliant in that. She did also a lot of other things in her decades-long career. Lived till 93. Died surrounded by her family. But obviously you'll remember her for being Sybil Faulty and putting up with Basil Faulty. She was excellent, an excellent actress, and also was also doing canal journeys with her husband and other things lately. Also lauded for coming out and talking about Alzheimer's, which she suffered from in the later years of her life. Yeah, it's a very sad loss.
Yeah, so she was diagnosed with vascular dementia in 2013. There's still so much stigma around dementia, but both she and her husband, Timothy West, talked about it in the programmes they were making, talked about actually how it changed their lives, what it didn't change about their lives, and I think, well, I'm sure will have offered huge comfort to people going through the same thing. I mean, dementia is a really terrible disease in many ways in terms of the impact that it has on someone's memory, etc. So I think, you know, she really deserves all the praise for that, as well as I used to watch Faulty Towers with my dad when I was a girl. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a classic.
Do you think she did so much, but it is obviously all overshadowed by that one role, which is wonderful, but I wonder whether, you know, we should know more about everything.
We probably should, but it was so iconic.
I think you just play an iconic role, and I mean that was such an iconic sitcom.
It was fun.
And,
it was very funny. I mean,
it's just a total utter classic.
And people have been describing it as a bad marriage between Sybil and Basil. I thought it was a great marriage.
It's quite functional by some people's standards,
exactly.
I think. So.
And only 12 episodes, which will always be the most surprising thing about 40 hours.
Yeah, well, they really knew how to stop when something was absolutely brilliant back then, didn't they?
And we're going to have to stop now, but I'll see you both at 11. Coming up at Sky News at 11, we're going to bring you the latest from Jamaica as Hurricane Melissa continues its destructive path across the island.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
We arrive, a secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
It's 11 o'clock. This is Sky News' extended press preview. Our top story. A threat to life. Hurricane Melissa batters Jamaica, bringing with it winds of up to 185 miles an hour. Tonight, Jamaica is declared a disaster zone. Dubbed the storm of the century, the catastrophic Category 5 hurricane has barreled across the island, wreaking destruction. Hundreds of thousands of people are without power tonight. The Red Cross warns that 1.5 million people on the island will be directly affected. Also tonight, the problems pile up for the Prime Minister. A new poll shows his party are neck and neck with three others, but way behind Reform UK. Blasts are heard in Gaza after Israel's Prime Minister orders his military to carry out powerful airstrikes.
Hello, dear. Just going to...
John Cleese leads tributes to the Fawlty Towers actress Prunella Scales, who has died at the age of 93. And over the next hour, we'll be discussing today's news with our reviewers, Ali Miraj and Sonia Sodha. And later, we're going to have a full run-through of tomorrow's front pages. Good evening. It took a little longer than expected to make landfall, but when Hurricane Melissa reached Jamaica, the Category 5 storm brought with it winds of up to 185 miles an hour. Melissa has been dubbed the storm of the century, with the World Meteorological Organization warning of a catastrophic situation with a threat to life. Mandatory evacuation orders for low-lying areas were issued, and tonight, hundreds of thousands of people are without power. The Red Cross has warned that 1.5 million people in Jamaica could be directly affected, and teams in Florida are preparing disaster relief packages. Tonight, the minister in charge of the emergency has officially declared Jamaica a disaster zone. Now, over the next hour, we're going to bring you tonight's headlines, tomorrow's front pages, and the views of our paper reviewers, the broadcaster and commentator Ali Miraj and the journalist and broadcaster Sonia Sodha. But first, a look at how the system is tracking the hurricane right now. Now, it made landfall around 6 hours ago and has now been downgraded to a Category 4 as it heads north for Cuba. The hurricane is even stronger than Katrina, which slammed into New Orleans and killed 1,300 people back in 2005. Sky's Martha Kellner reports.
A generational disaster is taking hold in Jamaica. The island is in the grips of one of the most powerful hurricanes on record. Roads flooded, power out and homes destroyed.
Look at it, look at it.
Melissa touched down on the south coast.
Every house up around us gone. Look at water.
And tore through anything in its path, exposing people here to its full, unforgiving ferocity. This is Black River, a seaside town where the hospital is unable to withstand the wind. Its roof peeled off in a matter of minutes. This hurricane is a nightmare scenario, driven by winds as fast as a race car, but moving through as slowly as a mediocre cyclist. The storm will hang over the island for hours, officials hoping their warnings have been heeded.
Jamaica, this is not the time to be brave. I've been saying for 1 week, don't bet against Melissa. It is a bet we can't win.
Aid missions are already underway. Miami has a large Jamaican expat population. Volunteers here pack tin sausages, tomatoes and beans to be flown over. Here, people fear that when the skies do finally part in Jamaica, a humanitarian disaster will be revealed. Dana was born and grew up on the island.
Most of the houses in Jamaica, they're not built properly for hurricanes, so we're worried about the people in Jamaica. As much as Jamaica can get, please send help.
My concern is that no one's going to be able to get in or out.
Victoria has a home on Jamaica's southwest coast. This is 2 hours before Melissa even made landfall.
Obviously, my biggest concern is everyone's life, because that's how threatening it is. I've never been through a storm where I worried about people's lives. I mean, we did the best to prepare in every way and make sure everyone was in a safe place, but we don't have any control over that now.
Accelerated by the increasingly warm waters of the Caribbean, Melissa exploded in size and speed. Communities on the coast, where many homes are wooden shacks, stood no chance. Around 25,000 tourists are trapped too in Jamaica's holiday resorts, Chantel among them.
I don't know if you can hear our surroundings a little bit here, but it is pounding. A few windows are broken. A lot of water is coming in, so we're just basically pushing that towels and stuff at the doors like that coming in. And the level of noise is ridiculous. Trees have already bended over and flew away, and some of our roof is currently off.
Nature conspired to send this perfect storm barrelling through Jamaica. It will weaken slightly before likely making landfall in Cuba and the Bahamas. The extent of the damage and the loss of life is unknown for now. Martha Kellner, Sky News.
And this is the tweet that's just been published from the Jamaica government. The Prime Minister, the Most Honourable Andrew Holness, has declared Jamaica a disaster area under the Disaster Risk Management Act. This declaration takes effect today, October 28th, 2025. The government's first priority is always the safety and well-being of every Jamaican. These orders give the government the tools to continue managing our response to Hurricane Melissa. And let's take a quick look and see how tomorrow's papers are reacting to that story. The Times features a spread of what they describe as hellacious Melissa. The Guardian calls the hurricane the storm of the century, and the Eye suggests it could turn out to be even worse than Hurricane Katrina was 20 years ago. And the hurricane also makes the front of the Telegraph. Let's get the thoughts of our guests in the studio, Ali Miraj and Sonia Sodha. I mean, it's happening right now. It made landfall about 6 hours ago. I spoke to a government minister and they'd lost contact with many parts of Jamaica, so we don't really know exactly what's going on. But Ali, I guess, you know, they had time to prepare within reason insofar as you can.
They did, but now we understand that some of the winds are up to 252 miles an hour. There's a very interesting piece in the Times here, in the Times World. Hellacious Melissa rips through Jamaica. There are also 8,000 British nationals who are on holiday there, 25,000 other tourists as well. The Jamaican government did give warnings early on to people. The US has also been telling people as well in Miami and Florida to try and go to internal parts of houses, cover yourself with a mattress, take precautions. The Jamaican government's telling its own citizens to go to higher ground. And you mentioned Katrina back in 2005. We know over 1,300 people lost their lives there. It devastated the place for years to come. There's also a big political fallout from it. I think, to be fair to the government here, they have done what they can. People should take precautions and take them now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The Times has also got kind of interesting reports. So there are these Hurricane Hunter planes that have got meteorologists in them that sort of I don't know quite how they do it, to be honest. It sounds incredibly dangerous, but they fly into the eye of the storm. And one of the atmospheric scientists who was on one of these planes said you have 10 crazy minutes with turbulence and suddenly it's calm and you're in the eye, and it's one of the most breathtaking and simultaneounly horrifying
Sounds
experiences.
terrifying.
I know, you know what's going on outside. Apparently there are birds actually trapped in the eye of the storm as well. I mean, some kind of further details there. But I think, you know, taking a step back from it all, we just have to hope this is a catastrophic weather event. The Prime Minister of Jamaica has said Jamaica is just not, nowhere set up for a Category 5 storm of this sort of force. So we just have to hope that the loss of life and the damage to infrastructure and to property is not as bad as some people were hoping. And we're forecasting.
Yeah, and landslides obviously a risk as well because it's mountainous.
Yeah.
So, you know, the aftermath is going to be a real challenge as well.
It's going to be absolutely appalling. People's lives are going to be completely turned upside down, houses destroyed, flooding writ large. It's
and again,
going to be really
with Katrina,
difficult.
Look how long
it will take a long time.
The state to recover from that, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, it's interesting. The Jamaican government have been quite open about how they're going to need help from other countries around the world and organisations as well. So, and you know, the UK government has already said that they would help when they can. So. Okay, it'll be interesting to see how that develops, and we're, of course, monitoring everything coming out of Jamaica. Now, Sir Keir Starmer has suffered another blow in the latest poll of voting intentions, with Labour, the Conservatives, the Green Party and the Liberal Democrats all neck and neck with each other, but none of them in the lead. The poll, which is by YouGov, puts Nigel Farage's Reform UK at the top with 27%. Labour has hit its lowest voting intention score ever recorded by YouGov, with a mere 17%, the same figure as the Conservatives. The Greens are just 1 percentage point behind on 16%, while the Liberal Democrats are 1 point further, back on 15%. Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, joins me now. So, John, obviously dreadful reading for the Prime Minister, but it really does show you a shift in the way politics is in this country.
Well, we saw that in the Caerphilly by-election last week, where there was massive tactical voting, handed victory to Plaid Cymru. And, of course, Reform were in second place. Labour was nowhere there either. This new poll for Sky News by YouGov, it was carried out Sunday and Monday, when, of course, the news was dominated by the blunder of a prisoner being released by mistake. The numbers show that Reform was up 1 from last week, Labour down 3, Conservatives no change, Greens up 1, Lib Dems on 15%, no change. So a slump for Labour, a surge for the Green Party. That the Greens' new charismatic new leader, Zach Polanski, cock-a-hoop, as you might expect. We said we don't intend to replace we don't intend to be concerned or disappointed by a Labour government. We intend to replace them. We meant it. YouGov have Labour's lowest poll ever and Greens' highest ever. Keep going, everyone. Well, I'm not sure about replacing the Labour Party, but they can do them quite a lot of damage. Labour are vulnerable on the left as well as on the right. And here's a piece, an interesting nugget from the small print of this YouGov poll. Amongst voters aged under 50, Greens 25%, Labour 22%, Reform 19% and Conservatives 11%. So amongst under 50s, Greens are actually in the lead. There's another poll that's bad news for Sir Keir Starmer, because this is an Ipsos poll, rivals to YouGov. Who do you prefer as Prime Minister? Well, for the first time, Nigel Farage has moved ahead of Sir Keir. It's Farage 33%, Keir Starmer 30%. You compare all that with what happened in reality in a proper vote. In Caerphilly, it was Plaid 47, Labour 11, Reform 36. So this poll by YouGov does reflect what actually happened last week. Let me tell you that as the budget approaches, 26th of November, you'd normally expect a budget to give a governing party, a bit of a boost. Well, all the doom and gloom around at the moment suggests that may well not happen. Now, to try and dispel some of that doom and gloom, Rachel Reeves has written in The Guardian. She talks about all these gloomy forecasts by the Office of Budget Responsibility and others. I'm determined we don't simply accept the forecasts, we defy them, she says. No return to austerity. Well, we'll see about that. She said also, I won't repeat the mistakes made by Liz Truss 3 years ago when spending got out of control, markets lost confidence. She talks about long-term decisions, closer relationship with the EU, new trade deals. And she concludes by saying this: these decisions and the decisions I will take at the budget don't come for free, and they are not easy, but they are the right, fair and necessary choices. This is how we'll turn our backs on decline and build a better future for tomorrow. Well, not easy decisions suggest perhaps tax rises and spending cuts. The budget is a few weeks away. Been all sorts of speculation, mansion tax, you name it, tax on ISAs, savings and so on, even an income tax increase. Rachel Reeves is trying to sort of keep a lid on all the doom and gloom forecasts. Well, I'm not quite sure she'll be successful in that, but she's having a good go in the Observer. Those polls, though, remain very stubborn. Terrible for Labour, pretty good for Reform, and the Greens appear to be on the march.
John Craig with the latest on that from Westminster. John, thank you. And here's how tomorrow's papers are covering that story. The Telegraph writes about the recent polling that we were just talking about, showing Nigel Farage would be Prime Minister if an election was held this week. The Times outlines that Labour has fallen to its lowest rating, while the Greens have more support than ever. And The Guardian highlights the government's troubles with the looming budget, but as we heard from John, Rachel Reeves vows to dispel the budget gloom. Back to Ali and Sonia. OK, lots to get into there. Obviously, the budget is looming, about a month away. Let's start with the poll. Ali, what have you made of it? I mean, obviously disastrous for Labour and a surge by Reform. We've seen that dynamic for a while. Anything strikes you in particular about this one?
Yes. What strikes me is that Reform is 10 points ahead, but very notable is that Labour, the Conservatives, the Greens and the Lib Dems are within 2 points of each other. This is a Reform show at the moment. And now Labour is also got a threat not only from Reform on the right, it's also got a threat from the Greens on the left, and maybe if Jeremy Corbyn ever finishes his panto thing, they might have a threat from this new party if it ever gets off the ground. So there are other options for Labour voters. And the interesting thing is, amongst younger voters, 18 to 24-year-olds, the Greens are now the largest party with 40% support. Now, that is not good for a Labour strategy. If you're sitting in Downing Street thinking about this, if you're Morgan McSweeney, you're thinking, this is not good at all. These are our natural constituents. The Labour Party has traditionally now moved more and more to the professional managerial classes, further away from its working class base. And you have simmering tensions in the country, particularly around small boats, which are not being resolved. And the government is now saying that it's going to be moving people to military barracks. That's also fraught with difficulties too.
But so we have Labour, in a way, trying to appeal to many of the Reform voters, many people leaving Labour for Reform. But if it seems that the Greens are actually going to become another threat, might Keir Starmer rechange that policy?
Well, I think we've definitely seen some of that. So Keir Starmer's conference speech, his party conference in Manchester, I think it was last month, the end of September, wasn't it? Or maybe just the very beginning of October. But he really sort of said, this is all about a fight with Reform, and sort of kind of almost pitched to the left a bit and sort of tried to, show himself as the head of a progressive coalition. And I think, Labour strategists will look at the by-election result in Caerphilly and see that actually progressive voters, if they back one party, they can stop Reform coming through. And this is Reform's issue. It's got, if it gets between 30 and 35% of the vote in the general election, it all depends on how the electorate sort of goes. If the electorate's very fragmented, that could win at a general election. If voters choose to vote tactically in local seats under first past the post, you could actually see Reform on 30-35%, but stopped by a bigger vote, swinging behind one party of the left, in inverted commas. The issue is there are lots of seats where it's very difficult for voters to know what that tactical voting is, because you've got left parties sort of neck and neck with each other, so you just don't know which one to swing behind. But also, I really do think that poll, and there's always a health warning, which it is just one poll, but I mean, extraordinary levels of support for the Greens there. It really shows a fragmented electorate, the extent to which currently at the moment, anyway, we are not in the old two-party politics. And fragmented electorates under first past the post, they tend to deliver quite unpredictable results, because actually you can win an election without getting a very high percentage of the vote. We'll have to see what happens over the next 3 years, but it's certainly not good news for Labour.
So we couldn't really end up seeing coalition governments like other European countries have, perhaps, because we have this...
Definitely. Definitely you could.
But we have the first-past-the-post system, which slightly changes the dynamic, though, doesn't it?
Yes, and the first-past-the-post system was always meant to be giving you a decisive result, typically, but we've had a coalition in recent years, and we may well have another one again. You could see Reform pairing up with the Conservatives, despite what the parties say at the moment, no one's going to commit to any of that, and you could have a coalition on the left as well. The question is, what is Starmer's government for? I mean, what is it genuinely for? There are two big issues that Starmer's government has to grapple with. One is the economy, and two is immigration, including small boats, right? Not legal and illegal immigration, both of them. I don't see what progress they're making. I know Shabana Mahmood's come in. She's only been there a few weeks. She seems to understand the gravity of the situation. But when they say we'll do whatever it takes to stop the small boats, is that going to involve removing themselves from the European Convention on Human Rights? I mean, these are the difficult decisions that the Labour government is going to have to grapple with.
I think if immigration is one of the main issues that the next election is fought on, that's quite bad for Labour, because the reality around small boats is, you know, Rishi Sunak found this as well, there's not that much that prime ministers can do to sort of stop this trend. You can try all sorts of things with France, but the reality is it's very difficult. The way for Labour to win the next election is to make people feel economically better off going into the next election. For that, you need economic growth. And the Chancellor's problem is, if anything, the economic forecasts are getting worse, not better. Now, that's not all her fault. A lot of that is down to what's going on in the global economy, you know, Donald Trump's tariffs.
She actually gave an interview in The Guardian that we can look at, and it's kind of linked to the OBR predicting a loss of productivity or a decrease by 0.3%. But she's kind of fighting back on that, isn't she?
Well, yes. I mean, she's fighting back by saying, I'm going to outperform the OBR, essentially, and I'm going to do that by getting some growth, and I'm also going to do that by hoping that the OBR give me more points for my growth-boosting measures in the budget, you know, and other sorts of policies outside of the budget, like planning reforms. The problem is that's talk, and when it comes to the economy, talk doesn't cut it. The only thing that counts is, do people feel better off at the end of the month when they go in to vote at the ballot box? And the problem this government has got, and it's quite similar to the problem the last government had, one of the reasons why people really were so cheesed off with the Conservatives at the last election, we have had 20 years of stagnant living standards. People, on average, are not really any better off in 2025 than they were in 2008. That's a real indictment on the British economy as a whole, actually, and that's not a point particular to one political party or the other. And governments are going to keep getting punished for this until that changes, but it's hard to see it changing very fast. That's kind of the problem.
Well, I think that's right. We're not alone in this, because a lot of Western nations are facing a similar thing. You look at the US, it's always been a bit of an outlier because they take a different strategy, which is...
And they're a much bigger, more homogenous economy.
They are, and a much bigger capital market too, and they're going for rampant tax cuts, which you'll see if they work or not. The other issue that Reeves has got is sticky inflation. It's 3.8%. It looks like interest rates are going to remain quite elevated for some time. We don't know. We hear that there are going to be more interest rate cuts coming, but the job of the Bank of England is singularly to get inflation down to 2% target level. It's 3.8% at the moment. Now, Rachel Reeves is blaming Brexit for that. She's saying that this is... And she might have a point. Does anybody really want to hear that at the moment, even if it may be the truth? Not really. What they want to feel is a government that's got their back, that's got a plan, that's actually been led by people with some business experience, unfortunately, of which there is zero in the government at the moment. It's just the way it is. We're being led by a group of politicians at the moment who really don't inspire that much confidence. There isn't that much business acumen at the top. And if there isn't business acumen at the top, then they need to bring it in from outside.
OK. Just on a final point, what do you think the budget should be like? Should it be kind of sobering and levelling up with the public and saying there's awkward decisions? What did you say? Difficult decisions, right, fair and necessary choices that need to be made.
I really don't see, if she wants to stick to her fiscal rules, I really do not see how she doesn't put taxes up. And that's not all her fault. It really isn't. But, you know, I do think politicians need to be a bit more honest with voters, which is to say the British economy, it's had long-term structural issues that not only have we never fixed, we actually made worse with Brexit. And these are not issues that you can fix overnight. We've got an ageing population. If you guys want the NHS to get better, and if you want good schools, like, you have to pay for it. You do get what you pay for, and a lot has been cut from public services in the last 15 years, and that is one of the reasons, not the only reason why the NHS...
We've also got millions on welfare as well. I agree with Sonia, but we've also got millions of people on welfare, including a plethora of young people also on welfare that are not working at the moment. There has to be a way to get them into work.
Totally agree with you.
She's trying, and that's fair on her. She's making an effort.
Problems on that is that it actually costs money up front.
That does, it does. But I do support her on that. And to be fair, I think that I support her on because remember the YTS scheme under the Tories? You give people a de minimis income to go and get a job, and if they don't get it, you take them off welfare. I think the government on that particular point should be supported.
OK. Going to have to leave it there for now. I'm sure we'll revisit the theme very soon. This is the press preview on Sky News. Coming up, a further look at tomorrow's headlines, including tributes to Prunella Scales.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
Hello there, welcome back. You're watching the press preview. I'm joined by the broadcaster and commentator Ali Miraj and the journalist and broadcaster Sonia, Sodha. We're going to hear from them in just a moment. But first, John Cleese has led tributes to his Fawlty Towers co-star Prunella Scales, who has died at the age of 93. She died peacefully at home in London yesterday, and according to her family, she had been watching Fawlty Towers the day before she died. She's also been praised for highlighting dementia. Here's our entertainment and arts reporter, Bethany Minell.
Hello? Audrey, any news?
A 7-decade career across stage and screen, but one role above others etched into British culture. Prunella Scales' portrayal of Basil Fawlty's sharp-tongued wife Sybil, a masterclass in comedy acting.
I know you have. I know.
50 years after it first hit our screens, still one of the nation's most legendary sitcoms, her comedy partnership with John Cleese being a big part of that success.
I know.
Somebody going to go and let them in?
Yeah.
I'll go then, shall I? Yes, I agree. Right, I'll go then.
Basil.
Hi, dear. Just checking the doors.
Cleese paid tribute, calling her a really wonderful comic actress whose scene after scene was absolutely perfect. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer also praising her as part of a golden era of British comedy, giving many people a huge amount of enjoyment over many years, from performers and politicians to friends in the industry.
She was funny, independent, intelligent, interesting, interested, intrepid, a very, as I say, considerable actress. She was a mistress of her craft.
Have I many forgeries?
Training at the Old Vic and working since the 1950s, Scales worked with some of TV's comedy greats, receiving a BAFTA nomination for her portrayal of Elizabeth II in Alan Bennett's A Question of Attribution.
Yes, well, as a member in this instance, somewhat unusually for me of the public, I also find a forgery fascinating.
Famous for playing a woman in a miserable marriage, happily her own was long and fruitful, married to actor Timothy West for over 60 years. Before his death in 2024, they travelled the world's waterways, documented in Great Canal journeys.
Once she's run into 2 or 3 things, I think you'll find she'll probably like to hand the job.
Are you trying
no,
to
I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying that
I'm a perfectly competent steerswoman.
The programme addressing her dementia with warmth and honesty. Survived by her sons Sam and Joseph, in a statement they said, although dementia forced her retirement from a remarkable acting career of nearly 70 years, she continued to live at home. She was watching Fawlty Towers the day before she died. The character that Prunella so memorably brought to life, that made her a household name, her companion to the end. Bethany Manel, Sky News.
Let's take a look at some papers concerning this story. The Metro describes the actress as a national treasure. The Guardian calls Prunella Scales really wonderful. And the Telegraph also bids farewell to the actress on their front page. Let's go back to Ali and Sonia once again. Ali, do you have any Fawlty Towers memories? And I mentioned that because that is the thing that she's mostly remembered for.
She was always having to deal with her husband at the reception when he was making a complete hash of everything, and she did it with great aplomb. I mean, we'll always remember her so affectionately. And as John Cleese himself says, she was a wonderful comic actress, and she was. I didn't really follow much of her other work apart from Fawlty Towers. It was so iconic. She obviously had a 7-decade career, very well known for other things she did as well. And it was very sad that her husband died a year ago now. She's also departed the scene, but 93 years old, big impact, obviously, on the British cultural scene, and she'll be sorely missed.
Sonia?
Yeah, I mean, what's to disagree with that, really? I grew up watching Fawlty Towers with my mum and dad. I mean, there were a group of sitcoms that used to be on a Saturday afternoon on the BBC. I think it was Fawlty Towers, 'Allo 'Allo, Some Mothers Do Have 'Em.
But you know what's in it? Can you think of any sitcom that's on now that people would be talking about in 50 years? Because
these are real, iconic classics, and there's a reason why she could never escape that role of Sybil Fawlty, and it's because it was just perfect, really. So, and I'm sure she wouldn't mind that she is so associated with that role as well. So, she lived to, a good old age, really, in her 90s. But I think one of the things that really sort of marked the work she was doing towards the end of her life was that she was diagnosed with vascular dementia in 2013. She was incredibly open, at a time where there's still a lot of stigma around dementia and Alzheimer's, the impact it has on your relationships with your loved ones. Both she and her husband, Timothy West, they made a series together, Great Canal Journeys. They talked very openly about, the impact it was having on them, the good bits, the bad bits. And I just think when you've got people experiencing illnesses like this and loved ones experiencing illnesses like this, I think people take great comfort in seeing much loved, national treasures is an overused cliche, but seeing them talk about it as well. I think it's sort of the same as, the King and Princess Catherine being so open about their cancer. It does actually help to lift the stigma, but it also, I think, can provide comfort to people going through the same thing.
Absolutely. Sonia, we're going to have to leave it there for now. You're watching the press preview. Coming up, we're going to have a full run-through of tomorrow's front pages and discuss more of the day's news. Stay with us.